When you're sick and tired of saying the vision and you know it so well, say it again. You never, ever, 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 ever stop. As soon as you stop communicating the vision, you're no longer the leader. Period.
All right. Welcome to ReedFlections, a podcast on life, leadership, and learning. I am Art Calderon. I'm here with Reed Nyffeler, who's a CEO of a growing security firm here headquartered in the heartland of America. Reed is a husband, a father, a published author, and now a seasoned podcast host.
I'm the host?
You're the co-host. I don't know. You do most of the talking. I'm mainly here for looks. Season 2. We talked about developing authentic and intentional leaders. We talked about why develop leaders, why use your time to do that, who should you develop, and finally, episodes 10 through 14, what capacities do leaders need? Today, visioning, but episodes 10 through 14, we're going to talk about strategic planning, financial acumen, team development, project management, a lot of good things, but again, today is visioning. Now, first of all, Reed, overview the 5 different capacities you've decided are the most important for leaders to develop.
Yeah, and obviously, if they've been listening to our podcast,
which they have,
which of course they have, and I know that a lot of people are listeners, not viewers, because if you're here for looks, that's why they're just listening to your sultry voice, not your image, name, image, and likeness here. But ultimately, I think the 5 capacities that we've chosen are really sequential and intentional. And it's a way to build and develop leadership. I think many times we work it backwards, and I'll talk about the 5, then we'll talk about why I say it's backwards. But the first is visioning, right? There's no reason to work on anything if it's not in alignment with our vision, right? It's just a time that passes, a task that passes time if it's not aligned with our vision. Once we have a clear vision, then we need a strategic plan. Nothing is accomplished without a plan. It's all a reaction to a circumstance. And then third is this, if the strategic plan comes in place, are we going to get returns on it? Financial acumen. How much will it cost us? And then ultimately, what would be the returns? And that isn't necessarily a financial return, right? There's things in our personal lives that we may get an emotional return or a physical return on that isn't a financial return. So that's the financial acumen, means how much will it cost us? It could be time, energy, and effort, not necessarily money either. Mm-hmm. And then fourth is team development. We're always going to do it for and with people. And so any vision is not accomplished by a person alone. There are different people that are affected by that are a part of participants in that are ultimately the reason we're doing it. And then finally, where most people like to start is project management, right? And that is, okay, what needs to be done next to help us accomplish along our team? Who's going to help us accomplish that? And then what, financially are we investing, time or energy we're investing for what return? Mm-hmm. And then how does that align with the strategic plan? And then ultimately, how does that project help us accomplish our vision? So most people get trapped by focusing, I got this project I got to get done. And ultimately, if we look at our daily activities, we're stuck in that project. Like, I got to get this, and this done today. And then if we look at that and say, wait, 3 of those 4 things don't align with my vision. They're just passing time and I got to do it the next day. That's why we always start with vision. And then it clarifies which projects we should be doing and managing and which ones should be off our task. But if we start our day where most people do, which is these are the things I have to get done and this is the list to accomplish, and it doesn't align with our vision, they're wasted time and effort. And so that's why we have those 5, and that's why they are in the order they're in.
Now, what makes visioning so critical for leaders? You touched on that a little bit, but highlight that again. Why is that such a focus? Because it's easy to just get caught up in the plan and the projects and all the things you got to do to make the vision, but why is visioning so critical?
So I think it really comes down to, first, if you're a leader, that insinuates you have followers. Mm-hmm. And so what are the followers following? Ultimately, if you don't have a vision, what are they following? Mm-hmm. They're following you as a person. Well, they might have a vision of who you are, mm-hmm. right? But ultimately, you as a leader are leading them to something.
They need something tangible.
Well, and what are you leading them by definition to? You're leading them in circles, right? I mean, ultimately, the leader knows where they're going in the most simplistic terms, right? So you cannot be a leader without a vision. You are merely a manager, right? And so a true, by definition of leader, you are leading them to something, and that something must be something they don't tangibly already have. And so that is a vision in the end. Where are you going? And so I think that you cannot be a leader if you don't have a vision. Now, there's a lot of people in leadership positions that don't have a vision, but that doesn't make them a leader. I think that's critical to understand. Title does not make you a leader.
Right.
And people are saying, well, how is that possible? Okay, how many people have the title, but we wouldn't consider them the leader?
Right. Someone else is influencing and leading.
That's right, because ultimately the people are following the leader. Leadership titles are merely titles. And so we have to see that. So then who is the leader, the one with the vision? Even if it's a peer that has a clear, defined vision, they are likely going to garner the followers much more than the person by title who's going to use it by force because they don't have a vision. So that's why vision is super critical, because you cannot be a leader without a vision. And so then ultimately, what does a vision do in that case? It enables people to see an aspirational and inspirational future state they can choose to be a part of. So if we clarify that vision, then they can choose to be a part of that if it enriches their lives, aspirationally and inspirationally. And so that's why they choose to do it. So if you're a leader without a vision, you're really not a leader, you're a manager.
Mm-hmm.
And if you do have a vision, make sure it's inspirational, right? We don't want it to be a terrible future because no one's going to follow.
Right.
So if you're struggling to get followers, right, and you're a leader, it's one, clarify a vision. Number two, make sure it's something people want to achieve in life and they want to see something as a better life, right? And so it should be aspirational and inspirational. Then they will choose to follow you. Then the next step will be in our future podcast. How do we get there?
Good. Now, I've heard you talk a lot about history. You like to reference history in your books and here in the podcast. Why is it important for a leader to consider or know some history before launching into a vision? Why is it important to know that backstory?
Yeah, so for me, I study leaders that had a vision and saw it through and led to success. And I mean, there's some, critical stages in our world's history where a key leader had a vision. I mean, no different than we live in the United States. And so the America that we live in was a vision of a whole bunch of immigrants that ultimately came over from Europe largely, and then now inhabited the Northeast predominantly initially, and then said, wait a minute, we have this vision for this nation, right? That ultimately people can be governed as a large nation, but also have states' rights and responsibilities. And they put together the Constitution, and that was a strategic plan in many ways. And how were they going to subdivide the country that could become states? And then ultimately with financial acumen, taxes would be coming into that. And then team development. Okay, how do we hire elect individuals to be representative bodies as part of the team? And then ultimately, what do they do? Project management, right? Our roads are constantly under construction. As a byproduct of that, that's a project to make sure that facilitates. And so that is a clear vision. And as we step back and look at the formation of the United States, we can see all 5 of those capacities were present in the process they were establishing. That is now the world's largest economy in the United States, all because that vision was foreseen. And so we look at, why do I study history? Because there was a vision from a leader that put it together. Then that vision fell apart at some point. And so how do I avoid that on the back half, right? One, your leader has a vision and leads people to that. And then 2, over time that breaks down. And why? And what could be different at the beginning so that it doesn't break down as quickly or as speedily as other communities or cultures or visions have?
So if you're a leader and you're working towards a vision, you reflect on the past and try and avoid some of the problems that the leaders of history have had, so that your vision is clearer, better, more successful.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be subsequent podcasts, but largely it breaks down on team development and project management. In fact, financial acumen is the reason it breaks down. Why? Because they make so much money. These countries, these visionary leaders. I mean, you look at Rome. I had an opportunity to go to Rome, and there was a vision that the Romans had, that they would conquer large masses of land and expand it. Well, then if you're right next to the Colosseum, what you'll see is another 25 or 30 buildings. Well, he had so much money from taxation, so much money coming from, the areas that he was conquered, that he just decided to spend it on himself. So financial acumen led complacency, that then he didn't develop an army to maintain his defenses. Then he didn't have project management or strategic battles that he was winning on the other side. So his vision was so successful, surprisingly, and his strategic plan so well crafted that it led to riches they'd never seen before on this earth, that led to the breakdown. And so it's interesting, and that's why financial acumen is sitting right in the middle. And ultimately the project was the battles that were there, but it started with that vision.
So talk a little bit about something a little closer to home, the organizational history. For example, your company, the one you run now, been around for 17 years? So a lot less time than the Roman Empire, right? That's in the course of history, that's just a very, very short amount of time. But you still have some history to consider. So how do you consider that, and how would someone who's running an organization today consider the immediate history when visioning for the future?
Yeah, and so again, I would study 2 organizations that I believe will be here for a long time, millenniums maybe even, and that would be Ford and Microsoft. And if you look at the visionaries that were attributed to that, right? Henry Ford, he wanted to make the car affordable for everybody. And so he created, and so that was his vision. It wasn't to streamline the manufacturing process, right? Even though that's what happened. His vision was to make a car affordable for everyone. And so because he had super clear vision, he said, well, how am I going to do that? Strategic plan would be, I will have people manufacture parts and assemble them together. We'll cut the cost of manufacturing down. I'm going to develop the skills of the individuals so they know how to assemble a tire or whatever role they have. And then ultimately the project will be go get the tires that we can easily attach. Then you look at Bill Gates and he said, I want a computer in every desk. And he wanted to make computers ubiquitous. So then that clarifies saying, I need a simple, usable software that can be engaged. And that's around finances, right? Excel. That's around information, Word documents, and PowerPoint presentation. And those all became subsequent tasks. So I look at that and I say, okay, how do I build an enduring organization with vision? And so for us, that purpose needs to be transcendent, universal, and applicable in every case, right? So eternal. And so that is essentially on our old podcast, or the other podcast, first season, we talked about that. And so I thought, what is that for us? Peace of mind. Peace of mind. We need to organize around creating peace of mind, because that doesn't matter where you're at or what you're doing or how you live. You need to, we will not be comfortable to do anything else around peace of mind. And I have not met someone that doesn't want to have peace of mind.
And that's the vision of your current company.
The vision of the current company is we will provide, we're here to provide peace of mind to pursue passion in life. So that is our vision statement. And why is it centralized around peace of mind? Again, I have not met anyone that says, you know what, I want to live life consistently scared, unsettled, and upset. That's what I'm looking for. And now let's say it the other way. Let's say that was our vision. How many people would say, I want an unsettled life. I'm going to follow you wherever you take me, Reed. Sign me up. No. And so then when you start with that vision, expand that tent as broadly as you can in case of peace of mind, right? And so then our vision statement is, we're here. So that means all of us. I include everyone. We is a universal term. It literally does not exclude anyone. Here is right now, this present. So it does get informed by history, and we are providing for the future of the present. And then to provide, critical, that's proactive. Right? That's a proactive vision. It requires engagement of the followers. And we're not just consumers, we're following and engaging. That's to provide. And then what are we providing? It's that peace of mind, what everybody wants. And then we're here to provide peace of mind to pursue passion in life. Why? What are they going to do with that? Whatever they want afterwards. And it gives them the autonomy afterwards to live the life that they want to live. And so that's how I apply that as a vision statement in an organization. And literally everything beyond that should fulfill that vision statement. And that's how the strategic planning is built.
Now, visioning, huge concept.
Right.
You should spend some time. You should spend
right.
some energy and resources on creating that vision. It's a lot easier just to set some goals, isn't it? Like, I want to be in the $1 million revenue by the end of the year. So how do you keep from skipping and running to the goals and setting some goals, which are necessary?
That's right.
But sometimes you know the temptation is set the goals and skip the vision. How do you prevent that?
Yeah, and I think first of all, accomplishing goals feels good. And the realizing your vision is not tangible, at least not quickly, right? We can set a goal of 10,000 steps a day, right? Some of you may have a goal for how many steps you're walking a day. And you're like, look, I hit my goal today. But is your vision really taking 10,000 steps?
Right.
And where did you go with those? I mean, you're wandering around in circles. Some people walk in literal circles. I mean, is that your goal?
Around their bedroom.
That's around their bedroom, whatever it is. I walked the store. I mean, where are you going with that, right? So a goal without a vision has no direction. You merely hit the 10,000 steps. But what is the vision? I want to be healthy, right? That's the vision you're trying to achieve, and that's not really tangible. What is healthy from day to day? Right. I can see the goal of doing 10,000 steps, but I can't see the progression towards health, right? Did I really live 5 years longer because I walked all these steps? I won't know until the end.
Yeah.
That's the problem with the vision, right? And so ultimately, the vision is not as tangible as the goal, so we jump right to the goal.
Very good. Now, there may be some people listening right now who are leaders. They have their company, they lead a department, maybe they just lead families, whatever, and they realize, I don't have a vision, right? I don't have something that my people can get on board with. So, what are some practical tips that you have for these people who need to formulate a vision? What are some ways to do that? How do you, it's a huge concept.
Right.
What are some practical ways that you can give for people to create their own vision?
And again, in our first season, we talked about a personal vision because we can't achieve an organizational vision until we understand our personal vision, right? So, through intuitive interaction, propel leaders beyond their self-imposed barriers to live out the unique purpose in life. That's my personal vision. And that applies to the organization. Because why is that important? If I am, let's say my vision would be to win a NBA championship, right? Like basketball. But my personal vision is to never play sports. Okay, how if my personal vision was to never play sports and the organization I'm running is totally going the opposite direction? Right. They have to be in alignment. And the more likely they're in alignment, the more likely we'll accomplish our vision. So the first step is have a personal vision. And you can re-listen to our first podcast season where we talk exactly how to craft that. Then the second step is craft an organizational vision in alignment with your personal vision.
Okay.
And so now practically, and we'll walk through that. The same principles of a personal vision apply in a organizational vision, eternal, transcendent, universal, and make sure it's a broad and wide tent that can be applied in every area of our life. But the reason that a lot of people don't do it isn't because of those two things. It's because they don't apply the time to do it. And so I have 2 different vision trips I do a year. Why do I do that? Because we live in a society that is always demanding and commanding our attention. And literally now, super practically, our eyes are largely what distract us the most and first, right? If we're sitting in a space and our eyes are open, our eyes are gonna be going to whatever's moving largely, right? Anything that are moving. And if we drive down the street, things are constantly moving because the car is moving, but there's also now moving billboards, right? We're now sitting in front of our phones, go to an airport, and look at the difference now. We see people moving all over the place. We see people staring at our phones. Things are in constant movement. And so we need a moment to process our vision. And so practically, how do we do that? We say, okay, what is the most eternal, transcendent, and universal item that our organization is created to do? And if you don't answer those questions, you won't have a viable business. Why? Because consumers won't see that. They won't even see why to come to you. So practically saying, what are we capable of doing the entirety of this business organization's purpose, right? How long we're here. 2, how does that expand the audience? If we have just one person we're serving through that organization, right? So transcendent, it's got to be above us. Universal, where can it be applied? And that in some businesses can be a little bit tighter, right? Because it might be geographic. You might serve a restaurant in a particular area, but we want to serve as many possible customers as possible. That's where no matter where you go, a restaurant has a kids menu and an adult menu, right? In most cases. And then eternal, how long can we serve this? And so if you answer those 3 questions practically, you will have a clarity around your business. And sometimes if once we clarify that, it's pretty obvious. It's like, wow, I should serve this community. And then we see that simplification of our vision is more likely to be applied instead of complication. And then the next step is it clear? If your vision is not clear to you, it's not clear to anyone else.
Right.
So practically make sure that it's eternal, universal, and transcendent. You know who your customer and your purpose of your organization, your vision is, and then make sure it's clear, right? And you see that with organizations. I'll give a couple of examples. Chick-fil-A, literally in the name, chicken. Right? So their chicken is what they're doing, and they're serving families. It's super clear. You walk in there, it's everywhere on the walls. Their execution around that vision is super easy, right? I'll use another example just because, it's always about food, right? In-N-Out Burger. They really only have 3 menu items. It's all just how they compartmentalize it, right? Burgers, fries, and a drink.
And then once you're in, they want you out.
That's right. And it's super clear in their name. They want you there fast. You're not going to go sit at In-N-Out Burger for 5 hours, right? I mean, it's super clear. And so guess why they're successful? Not because other companies don't make burgers or chicken sandwiches, because the vision isn't clear.
Yeah.
That's the difference maker. The vision in both Chick-fil-A and In-N-Out Burger are super clear. And as a result of that, people can align to it. They have a strategic plan around it, and they live according to their values.
Now, you talked a little bit about others understanding your vision, right? So communication is a key. You can have this great vision, but if it stays here and nobody else hears it, then no one's going to know, right?
Yep,
So
right.
what are some ways that you communicate at your current company? The vision that you have, how do you communicate that?
So first and foremost, I recognize that here's when you communicate vision. Early, often, and always. You never stop communicating vision. You're always infusing it in literally everything you do. I think that's the trap. I said, well, this one time I said this, and then it's kind of like at the wedding. When you say I love you, I'll tell you if that changes, right? I mean, it's like when you tell your spouse I love you, we exchange vows.
Yeah.
We've been married 50 years. You never said it again. I know. I told you on, our wedding date is August 1st. On August 1st, I told you I loved you, and nothing changed.
Yeah.
Right. That's where vision is, although the vision does not change or should largely not change, we communicate it early, often, and always. Right. If there's every single day I tell my wife I love her, not because I just told her at her anniversary, or not because anything changed, because it's a reminder of what we're really committed to, we can get involved in the daily distractions. So you must understand that you have to communicate vision early, often, and always. And I'll even belabor that point. When you're sick and tired of saying the vision and you know it so well, say it again. You never, ever, 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 ever stop. As soon as you stop communicating the vision, you're no longer the leader. Period. So then that leads to, when do I communicate it? Now, there are times that it's appropriate to say, I love you. Maybe when she's awake and looking at me. You know what I mean? I think that's appropriate. It's most effective, right? So we want to communicate vision around cadences within the organization that people are paying attention. And so then I look at our annual calendar, and I even have a cadence of our messaging, right? So literally we have an annual convention every year in January specifically. And so about July 1st, and think of this like a movie, right? When do we communicate a movie? So let's use July 1st. At the beginning, in July 1st, I'm working on the messaging that I'm going to communicate on the movie release, which is our convention in January. And so how do I build up interest and generate interest around the next stage of the vision, right? Think of it like, a movie series that you're very interested in, Marvel or any number of movies that have had multiple iterations of that movie. And so they start teasing that out. Oh, here's the beginning of the vision. Here's the actors that are going to be in that. Here's the theme. Here's the storyline that's forthcoming, right? Here's the trailers that come a little bit later. And so that starts in July. We start writing the script, right, of the next iteration of the total vision that's being delivered. And so then you start to see in September, right, I have a network call. And so the network call is introduce the vision for that year, or really it's more of the strategic plan, which we'll get to. But I always start with a vision and how the next iteration, every time I start with a vision, the next iteration of the strategic plan and how we're going to achieve that, financial acumen and team development, and ultimately project is kind of where that ends in the communication of that. And so then that's in September, right? And then in October, we have a group that comes in. That's our most key influencers, right? So I want to make sure that as the vision is communicated, the most key influential people, our home office team members and the most influential franchise owners, understand the vision because they basically reverberate that message. Then we come to our convention in January. That's the whole group of constituents. That's the movie release, right? So again, let's use that movie theme. We have the owner summit, in our case, is what we call it. That is essentially your critics. Your critics in a movie. And you work here, you understand it. Aren't they the critics?
They can be the critics.
They can be the critics. Then you release the movie, and then the general public consume it. And that's the broad audience of literally everyone, right? And it's communicated on a broad sense. And then, it evolves and it becomes a cult classic, right? Even though the critics may not have understood it. The ones that do very well have, co-branded opportunities, whether it's your favorite fast food place, it's a toy that's listed in that, or whether that's books that are released, or, any tchotchkes are released on behalf of that movie, or even Halloween costumes. Doesn't even really matter, right? And so that continues to carry forward. And so for me, that's pilgrimages. So then I literally go to the field, your at-home release, released on video. I'm literally going market to market to market to then localize that message, right? And so that then is really for me February all the way through July again. And so I do pilgrimages. I'm in the field. I'm saying the same content and I'm localizing it. Hey, you heard the vision. You heard the strategic plan associated with that for this particular year. You heard the financial acumen associated with that, and the team we're developing, we're training around that. Our training curriculum launches in February each and every year. And then ultimately, here's the next project. And it recycles. And then it goes to July again. And the vision's the same every single year. I find new stories to tell it differently, so it just peaks different levels of interest. But it's the exact same. The strategic plan is just the next step. The financial acumen has a minor update. The team evolves, and your project changes. And that's ultimately how all five come together.
Well, there you have it, folks. Visioning. We've come to the end of our time here on episode 10. Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you, listeners. We appreciate your time. Reed, thank you for sharing your time with us and your insights. Stick around next week. Episode 11 is strategic planning, mapping the pathway to the future. We look forward to having you then. I am Art Calderon. In the meantime, stay purposeful.
The last word, if you do not have a personal vision, you cannot have an organizational vision. Understand why you were created here, what purpose you were created for, craft a vision around that, and then apply that to the organization. And if you are a leader and you do not have a vision, you're not a leader. You're a leader by title only. Leaders have a vision and people choose to follow. Today, if you do not have a vision, you are wandering aimlessly. Do nothing else the rest of the day than stop and say, what is my purpose? And what is my personal vision? And then within the organization, those people I lead, what vision am I leading them towards? If you are able to craft this message, you will help the leaders walking with you instead of below you. I look forward to living the world that you otherwise create with those leaders that are walking with you.